So in this video, we're going to talk all about role play. Role play is a pretty important part of your sales game and improving, especially if you are someone who is jumping into remote sales for the first time and you are nervous. You don't know if you know how to sell. You are not confident with the idea of just jumping on a call and having these conversations, but you do want to get into it. Role play is going to be not a perfect, but a good way to start practicing and start getting comfortable with how to facilitate these conversations. And what I'm going to talk about right now is some principles and some things that you're going to want to keep in mind when you start getting into doing role play, mock calls, those kinds of things. And the overarching thing that I think is really helpful to think about when you're viewing mock calls or you're viewing role play is sales is like sports. And it's like sports in a few ways. In one way is it's not necessarily about seniority or tenure or anything like that. The people that get the best results, the people who make the most money, get paid the most, are the ones who perform the best players at the end of the day. It's like sports in a sense where there are players that make very little money and there are players that make a ton of money. Sales is both the lowest paying job in the world as well as it is the highest paying job in the world. But when it comes to the topics of this video, role play, what I want to say and how I want to relate it to sports is to take a look at how an athlete trains and improves their game. What a lot of people do with their role play and where they might be taking a little bit longer to improve their skill set in the way that they want to is they end up doing a lot of full calls, right? They'll get on a call to role play with someone and they'll have a full conversation beginning to end. They'll do, if they're a closer, they'll do, they'll frame the call, intro, discovery, all that stuff, all the way to the pitch, close, and handle some objections. And then it might take them 45 minutes to an hour to do that one piece of practice. And what happens is they realistically only got to practice each part of their game once in that entire session, whether it's 45 minutes, an hour, however long it took them. And that's just not the most effective way to go about it. And the reason why I like to relate to sports is because if you look at athletes and how they train, like if you ask yourself, do they like if the full thing was the best way to train, they would always just scrimmage, right? They would always just scrimmage over and over and over again, but that's just not how they train. How do they train is they take a part of their game that may be lacking or a part of their game that they want to reinforce and they rep it out. They hammer it out. How much better would you become if you're saying, hey, I want to improve the way I pass, whatever sport, the way I pass the ball? How much better at passing will you become by just playing scrimmage, by just playing more games? You'll improve, but it really depends on how often in that game you end up passing the ball, right? Same thing with sales. If you're trying to improve one part of your game, if you're trying to improve your discovery, if you're trying to improve objection handling, if you're trying to improve how you pitch, if you're trying to improve how you frame and how you kick off the call and how you deal with different things when it comes to framing and kicking off the call, how much better will you get at it in a day, in a week, by doing full role play calls? You'll get better at it, but is it the most effective way to go about it? Probably not. You'll probably get a lot better at it if you isolated that part of your game. Let's say you're like, hey, I've been struggling dealing with this one objection, or I've been struggling dealing with prospects that when I kick off the call, they immediately just say, just tell me the price. Well, what's going on here? I'm really struggling with dealing with that one part of the sales call. And if I could get past it, it would be huge. How much better would you get if you took your partner aside and you said, let's just rep this out. I want to kick off the call and you tell me, hey, just tell me the price, give me that pushback and let me handle it. And then once I've handled it, instead of doing the rest of the call, let's start from the top and do it again and do it again and do it again. And how many reps do you think you could get in that hour? And how much more valuable would it be for you improving that one aspect of your game, especially if it's affecting you massively. If you're on calls and you're like, man, I keep getting this same objection. And, let's say the problem isn't whatever you did to cause the objection. Let's say the problem is how you're handling the objection. How much better would you get if you repped out how to handle that objection and your comfortability? Maybe the issue is, you get this objection and you freeze and you're just, you don't know what to say, and you're uncomfortable with challenging or anything. You're uncomfortable with that scenario. How much quicker will you become comfortable with that scenario if you practiced it 100 times in the next 2-3 days, rather than practicing it 2-3 times in 2-3 days by doing 2-3 full role plays? Repping it out is huge. And another piece that is going to help you with your role play, and this is kind of goes into it, is I've listened to a lot of mock calls, reviewing people's calls, and just getting over being sick. Listen to a lot of people's mock calls, and one thing that I see a lot is they are laydowns for their partners, right? Their partner is saying, hey, like they're kicking off the call, they're going through the conversation, they're asking for the sale, and the partner is just like, yeah, yep, answering every question fully, and they're just complete lay down buyers. You're not helping anyone by being a lay down buyer. If you want your, partner to actually improve, you need to show them different angles. Be difficult. One thing that I would always say when we're practicing on sales teams I've been a part of is we're going to practice harder than we play. I want to come across the worst prospects, the weirdest angles. I want to deal with all of it before I ever touch a call, so that when I get on calls, I'm like, oh, this is simple. This is easy. Navigating this is great. These conversations are way better than what we practiced. I see a lot of sales reps doing the opposite, where the conversation is super easy, super light, super, lay down. And then they get on a real call, and the first piece of rejection or pushback they get, they're like, oh, what is this? I've actually had people just quit after day one because they got some pushback. They quit the job because they're like, well, I didn't know it was going to be like this. Right. So practice harder than you play. And the last thing I'll say is role play is very difficult to get right. Sometimes because the person you're practicing with isn't someone that would actually buy the thing that you're trying to practice selling to them. So your role plays will be a lot more realistic and a lot better if you practice something where they've either bought it before or they're actually struggling in that area in their life and they would actually buy that thing, right? Like if I'm trying to say, hey, I want to do a role play where I'm talking to a business owner about their marketing, and this person's never run a business, doesn't know anything about marketing. They're going to try to play that character, but it's going to be really hard. And a lot of times it just leads to the conversations making no sense and the answers making no sense and it just being very unproductive. So if you can try to practice something where they would actually buy it, or they just have an understanding of what a prospect, how they would actually answer and move in that scenario. And if you do all these things, your role plays will be better. Your role plays will be more effective. And you'll just get way better at sales way faster. Trust me, I've seen it across thousands of reps. Hopefully that helps. See you in the next video.